Welcome to Manufacturing the Workforce of Tomorrow, a new minicast brought to you by SME. I'm your host, Tony Meary, Director of Community Engagement and Workforce Innovation. In this minicast, we're going to dive deep into workforce development, exploring challenges, opportunities, and solutions that are shaping the future of manufacturing. Each month, I'll bring you insightful interviews with key industry leaders, sharing success stories, highlighting significant events, and providing valuable resources to help you stay ahead of the curve. Whether you're a seasoned manufacturing professional or just starting your journey, Manufacturing the Workforce of Tomorrow is your go-to source for the latest news and trends in workforce development. So join me every month as we work together to build a stronger, more resilient manufacturing workforce. Let's get started.
All right, Shonali, tell me a little bit about your background as far as going to college for engineering and what that experience was like for you.
Yes, so I went to Northwestern to study engineering. When I went there, I wasn't sure what kind I wanted to do. I was just good at math and science in high school, and people said, be an engineer. And when I got there, I think I bounced around a bit. I think I started in biomedical engineering. I moved to mechanical. It took me a while to find my footing. Like the classes themselves were so much harder than what I was in high school, of course. And the lecture classes just really didn't fit with my skills. And so I wasn't doing great in these lecture classes, getting a lot of sort of negative reinforcement, like, engineering's not for everyone. Maybe you should do something else. But I really did feel like it was what I wanted to do. I at least had this hunch. And so I joined the school's Formula Car team and got the most hands-on experience with engineering I could find to figure out, is it really what I want to do? And that's where I really found out, like, yes, I love this. I love making things and building stuff and working with people. So I ended up graduating with a degree in manufacturing and design engineering.
And you are not the stereotypical manufacturing and design engineer that we see. So talk a little bit about that journey of maybe walking into rooms and not seeing a lot of people that look like you.
For sure, yes. So I was one of very few women when I joined my first job in the auto industry. I'll say our plant had a lot of diversity if you looked at the big picture. There were many people of color, many women, people of all ages. But as you sort of segmented between people with college degrees and people without, a lot of the racial diversity dropped out. When you looked at people in STEM fields doing engineering work versus maybe HR, and even finance, then a lot of the gender diversity started to drop out. So as we sort of whittled down into the actual pockets that I was working in, there was so little diversity. And I started to get involved in, outreach and volunteering and intern recruitment. And so much of what I found was when we looked at colleges and high schools, it wasn't all that much better. So that was a really big driving force to me to think about how we can think about pathways to engineering a little differently to reshape the field.
Perfect. So now let's talk about you meeting Tiernan and this wild idea and a little bit about the very early days of SparkShop.
Yeah, so my co-founder Tiernan, way before we were co-founders together, she was a friend of mine, and she's younger than me. She had joined the car team as well. She's a biomedical engineer, and we actually didn't overlap in college. So we had these very parallel paths where she also wanted the hands-on engineering experience. And when I joined the team, I really didn't know about cars, so I learned how to weld, and that was my contribution. Tiernan was in a really similar boat, but she learned machining. So she was sort of assisting at first with making wheel centers and hubs on one of the Haas CNC machines, and then got into project management, which was the same path that I had taken. So it was actually all of the people between us in age that connected us, saying like, hey, you guys are so similar. You like a lot of the same things. And to them, that even just meant like we were both really into dogs and knew how to knit, which is not really core to what we do or who we are. But I'm so glad that we were introduced because we became fast friends and roommates after college. And really in that time together, we spent a lot of time talking about what we loved about engineering and the car team and the things that really made us find this source of like confidence and identity within STEM. But we also had a lot of time to complain about the things that we felt weren't right within the industry and the ways in which structures just weren't really built for people like us and people from other underrepresented identities.
And I love the fact that as true engineers, you said, let's get to the root of the problem. So let's talk a little bit about how do we start to change the diversity in engineering? And I know I have learned so much from you in the years that I've not only been a card carrying member of the SparkShop fan club, but also as we become friends of really talking about we have to go early and we have to do it often. So can you talk a little bit on the philosophy of SparkShop and the specifics and why you're working with the age group that you're working with?
Absolutely. Yes. So when we decided that we wanted to do something, broadly in STEM and for kids, for youth, we really had to sit and think about how we were going to do it differently because there are so many STEM education organizations out there and there are a lot doing really excellent work. But the problem still exists, right? It's still not making enough of a difference fast enough. So we really looked at the landscape of who is doing what and where and decided it's just two of us. We need to aim where we're going to have the biggest impact. So we decided to work with fourth and fifth graders because, first of all, they're so fun. It's a really sweet age where the kids are really curious and creative and friendly and open to new people and ideas. And also developmentally, they're forming their academic self-concept. So really their sense of who they are is starting to be based on what they're good at in school. Becoming a math kid, a science kid, hating reading. All of that is locking in when they've seen such a small fraction of what any of those fields have to offer. So we want to make sure that they are building so much confidence in STEM that they feel like they have a strong identity as inventors, problem solvers, innovators, and that can carry them through into middle school and high school where confidence takes a lot of hits, especially for young girls, and also where more opportunities start to pop up.
Absolutely. Now let's get into the philosophy because when we first met, I was like, wait, why do they have to do it during the school day? And again, I'd never thought about some of the STEM inequity with different programs. So let's talk about why during the school day instead of like an after school activity.
Yeah. So as we looked at all the programs kind of available to students, we really focused on Chicago. Like it's the city we live in. There are so many young people here, and there's a lot of STEM opportunities. So what we really wanted to do was tie this huge pool of talent to all the amazing educational resources and careers that are here. And we basically whittled down into three big barriers to access. So number one is cost, of course, right? That's going to be the largest barrier keeping kids out of opportunity. That's why we set up our nonprofit to fundraise and offer programs for free. The second is geography. So is it something close enough to the students to be a part of? Like we have world-class institutions in our city and wonderful museums, but if kids aren't close to them, that's not a reasonable opportunity to achieve. And then the last one was that factor of needing to opt in. So having or once you're in an after school program, it first of all has to be more fun than, running around outside with your friends, playing sports, doing crafts. There are a lot of fun things to do after school. But also you have to already kind of be interested in it, either you as a child or a family member. And that bias is already formed so early, right? So kids who haven't seen engineering yet might not think it sounds fun enough to sign up for an after school program. So for us, we really wanted to go in school, eliminate all of those barriers, and reach all the students in a classroom at once.
And I think the other one is transportation because I look at it, we're in a little bit more of a rural area, and rural and urban, you tend to see the same. If you don't have a ride home after school, you really can't do it, whether it's sports, after school activities, or anything else as well. So let's talk about what SparkShop looked like in the early days, which was toting machines around the greater Chicago area, and then kind of what it morphed to as we move through 2020 and some of the changes that we had then as well.
Yeah, so Tiernan and I really were like a traveling circus in our first couple years, and we did not have large cars, so these machines were kind of getting squeezed into the back seats and the trunks, and we were going into schools and running workshops that were like pop-up maker spaces almost. So we wanted to transform the classroom and give the kids opportunities to really practice what it is that happens in STEM fields. So giving them real problems to solve, real technology to work with, so they could walk away feeling that same joy that we really didn't discover till college, right? Till we had already decided to be engineers. Then we got to fall in love with it, which is a crazy prerequisite. So we wanted to bring all of that fun into a fourth and fifth grade classroom, build up so much excitement, and then also show the teachers what it means to teach engineering at this grade. In the next generation science standards, the word engineering appears like kindergarten through 12th grade. And that's something that I personally think is awesome, but is also really scary to a lot of educators who don't have that background. What does it mean to be 5 years old and engineer? The answer is like you build a tower of blocks, and when it falls over, you think about why and you build it again. That's something teachers have been doing forever. So a secondary one of our goals in these workshops was modeling for teachers ways to teach engineering and connect it to other subjects and make it a kind of standard part of the school day. I think like all of us didn't grow up with STEM in schools under these names, but we did do dioramas in history class. Like we prototyped things all the time, and giving teachers a language for that was also very important to us.
And I love that. And I think it's looking at what you've become now as SparkShop, you've kept that core of it all together. So let's talk a little bit about Pivot in 2020 and what SparkShop program looks like now, supporting not just students, but also educators.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, 2020, I think we were even without the pandemic about to hit our capacity. We were working with, I think, 12 schools, running around the city every couple days to a new school community to go back to another classroom, dealing with the machine maintenance, the fundraising, all of it. We didn't really have a plan for how we would get bigger. And then the pandemic happened, and it threw a huge wrench in our entire model, right? Like we could not get face-to-face with students, which was so important to our program. It felt like for the students to meet two young women in engineering was a huge part of the impact. We for a while, we couldn't like reach any families of students, right? We could reach the teachers, but then when our students didn't have internet access, we had no route to get to them. And we were lucky in that time to have recently gotten a relatively unrestricted grant. And we spoke to our funders and said, we need to figure out what we're doing next. Because for us, it wasn't a clean transition of let's just put this online. So we took a minute. And also we were looking around, like STEM wasn't the most urgent thing in March, April, and May of 2020, right? We were thinking about health and safety and access to food. So we put out a few free materials, and we mostly just kept in touch with our teachers to see what do you need and what do your students and families need. And what we built was a program that launched in fall of 2020 that was Google Slides curriculum that we sent out to all of our teachers and boxes of materials that showed every different kind of engineering. So I think we put out monthly units, which was a crazy pace for just me and Tiernan. But we sent out 8 different engineering units that kids could explore in Google Slides. They had all different activities, some in STEM, some in humanities, and then a box of the prototyping equipment that they would need to sort of complete all the activities that they could pick up along with any other homework or meals or anything from the schools. So that was a wild transition that we really thought would be temporary, because it was so much work. We were like barely managing it. And then the teacher said, hey, when school reopens, you're not going to take this away, are you? So we just had to figure out how we were going to grow it and make that version sustainable.
And I think that's a perfect segue from party of 2 to an actual organization with real fundraising goals. I mean, you have turned this into a viable, sustainable, just amazing nonprofit. So how many schools are you working with now?
We are working with 40 schools now.
How many classrooms is that?
Oh my gosh. It is, every school is a little bit different. I believe we're around 90 classrooms, but maybe it's more. And this is the kind of question that I could have answered in like a heartbeat 4 years ago. I think that's part of what's been so wild about growing is we have our team of 7 and one person is in touch with all of the teachers for sort of support, communications. Every school's laid out a little differently. And we're at this unique chapter now where I actually don't know every single element of what goes on every day, because we have such an expert team managing so much more than we thought we ever could.
Which is amazing. And when you look at that impact for the students and the teacher support that you're providing and creating these moments for students to get, build awareness, create excitement, and really start to see themselves, because I think the career link is also really important. Will you talk about how you link careers and how you're really making sure that the people you're linking look like the students that are taking the material and using it as well?
Absolutely. So now we do 4 curriculum units a year. And this year, our students are seeing mechanical engineering, environmental engineering, computer science and engineering, and industrial and manufacturing engineering. So those are our 4 We do a different 4 next year and we alternate. And to kick off every unit, what the kids get is a little like intro video. So we do a 3-minute spotlight on a young professional in the field that's representative of our students, talking about what their job is, what they enjoy about it, what kind of problems they get to solve, sometimes even what they were like as a kid. Like we want to make it feel really relatable, and we try to make sure that that person is local. And they're kind of welcoming the student into what this unit will be and what they'll be focusing on. We have, let's see, I think 94% of SparkShop students this year are non-white. So we make sure that they are seeing themselves reflected in engineering. They're seeing that they don't have to be trailblazers to pursue these kind of opportunities and enjoy this work and create new things. And then we also, 30% of our students, 24% of our students are also English language learners. So we make sure that our materials are accessible for bilingual educators. We've had a couple career spotlights with Spanish-speaking engineers who will do a little bit of their segment in Spanish with English subtitles to make sure that the kids really feel like this is built for them.
Absolutely amazing. So let's talk about and give a shout out for some of the foundations and organizations that are heavily supporting SparkShop, because you are a nonprofit and you are doing everything from fundraising to building curriculum to implementing to doing teacher training. So I think it's a great opportunity if organizations are interested in supporting you, they can, but call out some of the great orgs that have been really supporting you from the beginning.
Oh my gosh, yes. The Farley Family Charitable Foundation has been by far our biggest supporter, and in many ways enabled our growth by being flexible. I think what they've modeled for us is philanthropy that shows a lot of trust in what we're doing. We've gotten support from also foundations attached to companies like Comcast, ITW, Motorola, NBC Universal. Other family foundations that have supported include the Stephen and Susan Coben Foundation and the Helen Tom Edwards Foundation. Something that I really appreciate about our funders is that since we are a small organization, we're not everybody's cup of tea. So the people that do get on board with us and see us as maybe a more high-risk institution to give a grant to tend to give us a good amount of wiggle room to figure out how we're going to get this mission done. There are organizations out there that want to see really specific movement with their grants, right? They want to invest exactly this amount of money, have survey returns that sort of work back into their metrics. The best funders for SparkShop are the ones that really trust that we're going to have a transformational impact in these schools, and we are still figuring out exactly how to quantify it. So like we know that we see students leave SparkShop programs more confident in STEM, more engaged in math and science, less afraid to answer questions wrong. All of that we can kind of prove out. We've also gotten really cool teacher feedback that we are working on quantifying. Like we've heard that students who don't usually engage in school light up when it's SparkShop time. Like they are all in, they're answering questions, they're working with classmates. And that's something that's harder to gather on a survey. So I especially want to shout out the funders that are along with us for the ride of figuring out the full value of investing in STEM for young people.
And I think it's amazing. And I think part of that flexibility is why you've been so able to pivot and really serve the area. And I love the fact that you're so concentrated in Chicago because you're having a huge impact, but you're also building a legacy with some of these students that have now aged out. So talk a little bit about your alumni program and what you're doing for some of those students that have been through SparkShop, because they have to be getting towards college age at this point, right?
They are, which is so wild to think about. So we started alumni programming about 2 years ago. We brought on a team member with the loosest job description, which was just like figure out what's happening after our programs, like where are the kids going and what do they need. We're very lucky in Chicago that most of our elementary schools are K through 8. So we do kind of have them in an ecosystem for a couple more years. We can see some longitudinal effects. So we do we've done a couple middle school challenges, like 1-day interactions, mostly designed to drop off another survey at the start of it and see like, how are they doing? Is that confidence still sticking? And it does seem to. And then 2 summers ago, we launched an internship program. So we are hiring high schoolers, 16 and 17-year-olds, for a short internship that is a sort of combination of learning and working. So in the mornings, we do career development work. where they are practicing interviewing and they're writing resumes, they're building a LinkedIn page, and they're meeting tons of folks in the industry that they can connect to. So we did a college tour and a site visit last year. And what we want is to give these students a professional network as they grow, because that's so important. You and I talk about this all the time, right? The importance of who you know when to the sort of path that your life takes is immeasurable. And then in the afternoons, they're working on SparkShop projects. So some of the students have more of an interest in business. Some of them have helped with fundraising, like designing merch, working on events. Some of them last summer worked on laying out our first office space, so taking a bunch of measurements and drawing up blueprints. And we had another team working on a documentary. So there is a very cool video on our YouTube that these 16 and 17-year-olds produced of the whole experience, where you'll also see the robotics team, which was a few of them programming our universal robots cobot for a demo.
Absolutely amazing. And I can't thank you enough for just staying the course. It's been crazy waters. You've been through a lot, but you just continue. And I have to say the curriculum is just so dynamic and so engaging. I mean, talking about even just when your materials program that you used to have that was like, why was it called the brass age and the copper age? And what do we look like when we're using different materials? It's just opening up a world of opportunities for students that may not have had that chance. So thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for the work that you continue to do. It's never been more vital as we build out the talent pipeline that we start to look at opportunities for urban and rural students to really thrive in STEM, engineering, and manufacturing careers that they may not even have on their radar.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap for this episode of Manufacturing the Workforce of Tomorrow. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform to stay updated on all the latest trends and happenings in workforce development. Don't forget to visit our website at sme.org for more resources and information. Until next time, let's continue to build a stronger, more resilient manufacturing workforce together.